Hello and welcome to the EMF Production Lab's tutorial of white balancing. So what is white balancing? Well, every single light emits a slightly different color temperature. And the color temperature can range from tungsten, which is like a slight orange color, to daylight, which sometimes can be perceived as a slight blue. And there's a variety of different colors along that range. So white balancing is taking the average of that color temperature exposure and defining in camera what is true white. So right now in this lighting setup here, we're using tungsten lights, which to my eye have a slight orange glow to them. But because we're white balanced in camera to tungsten, that orange light is now perceived as a true white. So this background here is almost a white seamless void. So we measure color temperature on the Kelvin scale, which is, for our purposes, a range from 3200 Kelvin at tungsten to 5600 at daylight. So in this video, we're going to go over bicolor lights, which can switch between tungsten and daylight at the head of the unit, as well as gelling lights for the purposes of balancing color temperature. So to start, I want to talk about a bicolor LED light. The bicolor means that it can switch between tungsten and daylight through a dial at the head of the unit. So right now, I've turned off our background and we have the two tungsten lights, my key and my fill, filling in on my face, as well as the bicolor LED set to the tungsten setting. So everything right now is using tungsten. And because we're white balanced in camera for tungsten, everything appears as white. So now, if I were to adjust the unit from tungsten to daylight, the daylight unit is going to appear more blue. That's because our camera is set for tungsten as white, and everything else has to adjust to accommodate that. So the daylight is appearing more blue. So now if we were to adjust our white balance in camera to daylight, the LED panel is now going to appear as white, but everything else has now dramatically shifted to a way more orange color because the tungsten is reading significantly more tungsten, shifting it towards that orange color temperature. Now if we return to tungsten and shift to tungsten in camera, we're back to that clean white setup that we had originally. So I've moved us into a different lighting setup. I've situated myself next to a window, and the predominant light in this scene is daylight. There's a little bit of tungsten light in here in the room, and we're seeing some of the fluorescent lights of the media center lobby. But for the most part, there's a huge amount of daylight coming in through the window and ambient daylight bounce off of all the walls in the space. So we're set to tungsten in camera, and what we're perceiving in camera is a really harsh blue shift. So we're going to now change our white balance from tungsten to daylight, and we'll note the differences of the light shift. So now we've shifted in camera our white balance from tungsten to daylight. The blue light that we were seeing earlier is now appearing more white in camera, which is a more accurate representation of the ambient light in the space and my skin tone. So we're in a different light setup now, and I want to talk about color balancing your light for the environment that you find yourself in. So right now we have daylight coming in from the window that's serving as our key, and we're white balanced in camera for daylight. So the light is appearing as white, and I have this really strong key light on this side, but then a lot of negative fall off on the left side of my face. So I want to balance that out. But the only light I have available to me is a 300 tungsten airy Fresnel. And that tungsten light is now going to appear more orange as compared to the daylight coming in from outside, which is white, based off of how we've white balanced in camera. So what we can do is add gels to the light. So a gel is a type of filter that you can add to a light for color temperature balancing. We have blue gels, we have orange gels, but don't think of them as blue or orange, but think of them more so in the respect of color temperature correction. So blue gel is a daylight balanced gel for pushing a tungsten light towards daylight. And the opposite is true. An orange gel would push a daylight balanced light towards tungsten. So now, if we add the blue gel to the front of the airy light, we're going to see that that orange light starts to go away and appear more blue to match the daylight that's coming in from outside.